Now, when we look up to the basic understanding or the basic picture over here, then we define ecology. Right? Ecology is a constituent science, or we can say it is a branch where many things come into place. Geography would also come into place. Biology, science would also come into place. Everything comes into place over here. Though ecology is a carved out niche separately. Right? Wiedzer and Nietzsche, they have started carving out ecology as a separate being. And ecology is a definite science right now. Ecology basically is the basic understanding of the biotic and their interrelationship with the abiotic. Right? How biotic they are linked with themselves, or how biotic have interactions. Of course, every living being will have an interaction with the other living being. How they are dependent on abiotic. When they are dependent upon abiotic, they will also have an influence over abiotic, and also similarly, the abiotic will also have the influence on the biotic beings. So abiotic, when we say soil, water, air, temperature, sunlight, how living beings are influenced by these, and how living beings can influence these also. Right? This is soil pollution. अगर बोलते हो तो क्या है? The influence of biotic over the abiotic. Right? Or climate change की अगर बात करते हो तो influence of the biotic over the abiotic. The anthropogenic effects of the things directly influencing the overall being of the ecology or being of the environmental factor. That becomes an influence of the biotic over the abiotic itself. Right? So this becomes a kind of reciprocal relationship. This becomes a kind of reciprocal relationship. That means one influences the other and the other influences the other one also. Right? This becomes a kind of reciprocal relationship. Now, the reciprocal relationship, whenever we understand, this reciprocal relationship can be quantified also. Right? It can be quantified also. एक इंडिविजुअल इन्फ्लुएंस कितना कर रहा है एनवायरनमेंट को, बहुत सारे इंडिविजुअल्स मिलकर एनवायरनमेंट को कितना इन्फ्लुएंस कर रहे हैं. राइट? आप एक सिगरेट लाइट अप करते हो तो कितना एनवायरनमेंट पोल्यूशन होता है. और जब एक कोल फैक्ट्री या थर्मल पावर प्लांट जिससे 100 फैमिलीज या 200 फैमिली या 1000 फैमिलीज के लिए थर्मल इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बनाई जाती है तो कितना पोल्यूशन होता है. कैन इट बी कंपेरेबल? पोल्यूशन तो दोनों से है. सिगरेट लाइट करोगे तो भी पोल्यूशन है, थर्मल इलेक्ट्रिक पावर प्लांट जनरेट करोगे तो भी पोल्यूशन है, बट इंटेंसिटी इज डिफरेंट, क्वांटिफिकेशन इज डिफरेंट, एंड सो द इन्फ्लुएंसेस आर डिफरेंट. Right? Understood my point? Right? So when the influences are different, we have to understand what is the influence of an individual and what is the influence of a group on a whole. Right? So what is the influence of an individual or reciprocal relationship of an individual with its surrounding, with the ecological factors, with the biotic factors, with the abiotic factors? This becomes autoecology. Right? You can write it down also. The reciprocal relationship of an individual. The reciprocal relationship of an individual or its population on its environment through multiple stages of its development. Through multiple stages of its development is called as autoecology. Is called as autoecology. Another one is when a group would do it. Everyone is doing it. Now, not only we say, चलो आपने सिगरेट लाइट किया, पोल्यूशन हो गया. 10 लोगों ने मिलकर सिगरेट लाइट किया, पोल्यूशन हो गया. वो क्या है? रिलेशनशिप ऑफ अ टाइप ऑफ स्पीशी और अ टाइप ऑफ इंडिविजुअल एंड इट्स सराउंडिंग. ठीक है? आप पान की दुकान पे जाते हो, 10 लोग सिगरेट लाइट करते हो, तो एक पोल्यूशन है, वो एक टाइप ऑफ इंडिविजुअल का पोल्यूशन, वन टाइप ऑफ पोल्यूशन. ठीक है? बट नाउ अब ह्यूमंस के साथ कैटल्स को भी ऐड कर दो, काऊ को ऐड कर दो. आप सभी लोग जानते हो ना, काऊ इज अ सेल्यूलोज ईटिंग ऑर्गेनिज्म या एनिमल. राइट? सेल्यूलोज खाता है ना, ये ग्रास खाता है. ग्रास का बेसिक कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट क्या है? सेल्यूलोज. व्हेनेवर सेल्यूलोज इज डाइजेस्टेड, व्हाट इज प्रोड्यूस्ड? मीथेन इज प्रोड्यूस्ड. सो काउज एंड बफेलोज एंड कैटल्स आर आल्सो द सोर्स ऑफ मीथेन. राइट? सो व्हेन दे आर सोर्स ऑफ मीथेन, सो दे आर also in a process of digesting something which is not good for the environment. Right? अब साथ में कुछ और चीजों को भी ले लो, जैसे सॉइल और लैंड पोल्यूशन करते हैं, एनिमल वेस्ट से करते हैं. ठीक है? पिग्स को ले लो, डंकीज को ले लो, मंकीज को ले लो, ये एक तरीके से वेस्ट ही है. नाइट्रोजन इज वेस्ट, भी एक्सेस नाइट्रोजन इज आल्सो वेस्ट फॉर द लैंड. राइट? या बर्ड्स को ले लो, बर्ड्स का ग्वानो, वो यूरिक एसिड डिजेस्ट करते हैं. बर्ड्स जो कबूतर सुबह सुबह आप व्हाइट शर्ट पहन के निकलते हो ना और वो अपना टूथपेस्ट गिरा देता है आपके ऊपर, राइट, व्हाइट शर्ट के ऊपर, तो वो क्या है, वो यूरिक एसिड है, दैट इज ऑल्सो नॉट गुड फॉर दी सॉइल, एक्सेस ऑफ इट वुड बी डेंजरस, सो ग्वानो। तो ये सब क्या हुआ, अब ह्यूमंस है, कैटल्स है, बर्ड्स है, मंकीज है, ये सब क्या है, दे आर ऑल इन्फ्लुएंसिंग द एनवायरमेंट, they are all influeंसिंग the environment, and so environment is also making something for them also। ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ humans को मिल रहा है, birds को भी मिल रहा है खाने के लिए, plants है, monkeys को भी मिल रहा है, cattles को भी मिल रहा है, so everything is influencing its surrounding and is getting influenced by the surrounding। When we study this complex relationship, this becomes sin ecology, when a community is involved, right, you can write it down, its population, individual or a particular type. I will explain all these terms, you will get the meaning of all these terms shortly, right, how they are different. So simply, reciprocal relationship of a biotic community and its surrounding environment, through all stages of their development, is called as sin ecology. Right? So in a certain way, environment and its surrounding is influencing the living beings and is getting influenced by the living beings. So we have to understand, whenever we say this thing, biotic as a term, we have seen with autoecology also, with sin ecology also, we have seen one thing, that this can be complex. The relationship of an individual or a type of species with its environment can be different than the other individual also. Humans का जो relationship है वो cattle से different है। Humans तो मीथेन नहीं ingest करते, तो अगर ये बोलें कि जिस तरीके से kettles environment को pollute करते हैं वैसे humans तो नहीं करते, लेकिन humans किसी और तरीके से करते हैं। The waste material ingested by humans is not good for the environment also। ठीक है, हम लोग यूरिया ingest करते हैं, right? तो अगर हम यूरिया ingest करते हैं तो वो यूरिया जिस फॉर्म में हम ingest करते हैं, that is not good for the environment because that invites more of the pathogen parasites also। इसलिए जब भी हम बात करते हैं ना ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग की बात करते हैं, राइट, ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग का नाम सुना, क्या करते हैं ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग में, वी यूज ट्रेडिशनल थिंग्स, वी यूज बायो फर्टिलाइजर्स, वी यूज बायो मनोर में क्या यूज करते हो, काउ डंग यूज करोगे, कैटल डंग यूज करोगे, लेकिन कहीं पे भी आप कहीं पे भी पढ़ के नहीं देखोगे दैट वी यूज ह्यूमन वेस्ट और ह्यूमन एक्सक्रीटा एज अ फर्टिलाइजर फॉर द ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग। नहीं होता, ह्यूमन होगा भी तो वो कौन सा होगा, जो सीवेज ट्रीटमेंट प्लांट से होकर के आ गया है, जिससे बहुत सारे हमने पैथोजन हटा दिए, राइट। सो माय पॉइंट ऑफ सेइंग दिस, दैट द इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ ह्यूमंस इज डिफरेंट, द इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ कैटल्स इज डिफरेंट, द इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ मंकी इज डिफरेंट। ह्यूमन वेस्ट इज नॉट बीन यूज्ड, इट इज नेवर बीन यूज्ड। जब आप सीवेज ट्रीटमेंट प्लांट में भी उसको लेके आते हो, फिल्टर आउट करते हो, डंप कर देते हो, गेट्स डम्प्ड आउट, फिर सॉइल आउट कर देते हो, फिर बाद में कभी यूज करना है तो यूज करते हैं, वी डू नॉट यूज इट, राइट। ह्यूमन वेस्ट इटसेल्फ इज अ प्रॉब्लम बिकॉज ह्यूमन वेस्ट वुड इनवाइट मच अमाउंट ऑफ द पैथोजेंस। आपके बॉडी से देयर आर अराउंड 1 billion microorganisms pass through, this is the minimum amount, pass through your body, your intestine per month, and half of them can be parasitic, pathogenic। अब अगर वही आपके एक्सक्रीटा से बाहर निकल गया और वो एनवायरमेंट में एक्सपोज्ड है तो क्या होगा, कोई भी उससे एक डिजीज क्रिएट कर सकता है, एपिडेमिक डिजीज क्रिएट कर सकता है, हो सकता है ना। दैट्स व्हाई सबसे पहला काम क्या किया, जब एनवायरमेंट कंजर्वेशन करना है तो सबसे पहला काम क्या किया, ओपन डेफिकेशन फ्री। व्हाई दिस ओपन डेफिकेशन इज सो नॉट सो गुड फॉर अस। अभी एक साइकी है लोगों की, भाई ओपन डेफिकेशन करेंगे तो यूरिया बढ़ा रहे हैं, राइट, लेकिन यूरिया के साथ साथ आप पैथोजेंस भी इनवाइट कर रहे हो। अब कोविड वाला टाइम हो, सोचो, इमेजिन करो, कोविड वाला टाइम है, रूरल एरिया है, ओपन डेफिकेशन फ्री नहीं है, ठीक है, हर कोई जा रहा है ना, ठीक है, नाउ दैट कोविड वायरस इज देयर इन दी सॉइल। अब कोई वहां से निकला, बाय चांस बेयर फुटेड है, टच हो गया, 1 से 2, 2 से 20, द रेट ऑफ एपिडेमिक वुड हैव बीन मच मोर हीनस, राइट। सो somewhere down the track human excreta is not useful for that case. Now coming back to the main, again the same point, the influence created by a type of individual is different and the other type of individual is different. So whenever we understand ecology with the help of a hierarchy between the biotic factors, right? There must be an hierarchy. कैसे आप divide करोगे biotic factors को? So there must be a hierarchy, which is called as the ecological hierarchy, or we can also say it as biotic hierarchy. We can simply say ecological hierarchy. Ecological hierarchy defines the biotic factors and their abiotic spaces also. They define the biotic factors and their abiotic spaces as well, right? Now, these terms are important because these terms are being asked here and there. So whenever we say we study ecology as a topic, or whenever we say ecology is being understood, the first and foremost thing in the biotic beings which is being understood is individual. You yourself, right? Because what is the basic definition of environment we have seen? Everything surrounding me is environment. So first thing that we have to understood is me, my type. So the basic unit of ecology, whenever we say, is an individual. What this individual is having an influence on the environment, or how this environment is influencing the individual, because everything would start from there only. Everything would start from there. This individual would only reproduce more progenies, would produce more number of individuals, would create a population. Then that population would inhabit in a particular area. They would influence the environmental or ecological conditions over there, right? And ecological conditions would also influence them. Then there would be an evolution in this individual also, right? जैसे वो डायनासोर से बहुत सारे इंडिविजुअल्स थे, राइट? और अचानक से लिजर्ड कैसे बन गए, चिकन कैसे बन गए? Transformation of environmental conditions. There was a sudden cold era, cold age, ice age that we say, right? And the large bodied animals could not have survived that ice age. क्यों? जितनी ज्यादा large body होगी उतना ज्यादा क्या होगा? Heat loss होगा. So if the heat loss is high, you would die. So subsequently what they did, there was an evolution in that individual only. That dinosaur reduced its size and became the lizard. ये घूमती फिरती रहती है. It's just the dinosaurs are just the ancestors of these lizards only. Different types of lizards we speak about. We'd be alligator also. We'd be that monitor lizard that we speak about. Anything. So everything happens with this individual only. Everything starts with this individual. The ecological processes are being governed by the individual. The ecological influences are being taken on the individual only, right? So individual becomes the basic identity in the ecology. Individual of anything, be it be humans, be it be cow, be it be monkey, be it be donkey, be it be anything, be it be a plant also. Individual of one type of the variety, say wheat. Individual of one type of the variety, say rice, right? Be it be anything, any biotic factor, the single unit of that biotic factor becomes the individual, and it becomes the unit of ecology, because that starts the relationship. That's where we can understand the relationship. That also starts the interaction. That also starts the influences on the environment, interaction with the biotic. Everything, whenever we speak about, individual becomes the basic unit of ecology. You can write it down also. Individual or organism is the basic unit of ecology and ecological processes. It continuously exchanges energy and material from environment and influences the environment as well. Every individual functions separate from other individuals. Every individual functions separate from other individuals. मतलब क्या है इसका? Other type of also, other body also. ऐसा थोड़ी ना कि आपने खाना खा लिया तो मम्मा का खाना भी हो गया. मदर को खाना खुद खाना पड़ेगा ना, फादर को खुद खाना पड़ेगा ना, राइट? या आपके सिबलिंग को खुद खाना पड़ेगा ना. यू आर द इंडिविजुअल. ऐसा तो नहीं कि आपको फूड एनर्जी मिल गई, सबको मिल गई. नहीं, एवरी इंडिविजुअल हैज इट्स ओन exchange of energy and matter with the environment and functions in its own identity. It is a separate identity and it is a complete identity in itself. You are irrespective of the other individual also, be it the same species also, right? You are in complete identity. आपकी identity isolated है, आपकी requirements isolated है, your interaction is isolated, right? Everything is isolated in that sense. So whenever we say an individual is the unit Unit we say, it is the structural unit also, it is the functional unit also. The ecological processes can start with an individual also. The ecological processes can be continued with an individual also. Ecological process का मतलब क्या है? The basic exchange of food energy. कुछ खा रहा है, भले ही कोई उसको नहीं खा रहा है, पर खा तो रहा है. It is in a cycle of food energy. So the basic processes are being driven. The energy and matter is being continuously cycled. Nutrients are cycled. Influences are created on the environment. So individual itself becomes the unit of structure and function of the ecosystem also, right? You can write down one more thing. Individual or new individuals develop from pre-existing individuals, and hereditary characters are transferred. In this process. Hereditary characters are transferred in this process. One more thing. The constituents of an individual cannot survive separately and independently. The constituents of an individual cannot survive separately or independently. Right? Understood this point? आपका body dissect कर दो, heart अलग निकाल दो, brain अलग निकाल दो, they would not survive independently. They would not have the same function as you have. Right? So you are a group of many things together or many components together, and all these components function together. And the basic function is obtain food energy. Right? You are the basic set. The individual is the basic set. Now, when many individuals they club together, then when they club together, they are of the same type. Right? Now we are talking about individuals of the same type. When they club together, they become one subset, which is called as population. They become population. Population of humans, population of plants, population of hen, population of monkeys, population of donkeys. These are all various types of the individuals. When they are living in a particular area or when they are clubbed together, they become the population. Right? Now you can write down population is a group of many individuals, is a group of many similar individuals inhabiting in a geographical area, inhabiting in a geographical area or space during a particular type. During a particular time, sorry, not type. During a particular time. Right? Next. Individuals of a population function independently. Right? Every individual of a population would function independently, irrespective of the other. Next, group of individuals living in any geographical area. Group of individuals living in any geographical area is called as its local population. Is called as its local population or DEAM. Called as its local population or DEAM. Like Delhi का अपना एक local population है, right? Haryana का अपना एक local population है, MP का अपना एक local population है. So these are different local population. Individuals are same. They are all Indian. They are all human beings, but the different populations. So DEAM of humans in Delhi, DEAM of humans in Haryana, DEAM of humans in Madhya Pradesh. These are all different local populations, right? Now, whenever a particular type of individual or its population gets adapted to the environmental condition in any geographical area, gets adapted to the environmental condition in the geographical area, and as a consequence of it, there are certain physiological demarcations. Right? There are certain physiological demarcations in that individual also. Like, for example, chalo apni class mein hi example hai, right? People from South India, they would look different, slightly different from people in North India. they would look slightly different from people in Northeast. Aren't they humans? They are. Aren't they Indians? They are. Aren't they Homo sapiens? They are. But they are sets of certain genes which are adapted genetically to its environmental conditions. Of course, the environmental conditions in South India, Hyderabad, would be different from the conditions in Delhi and then the conditions in, say, Meghalaya. Right? So there are certain physiological demarcations that originate due to the adaptation of an individual to its environmental condition. These different sets of populations, they are called as ecotypes. What are they called as? Ecotypes. There's an ecotype of this, ecotype of this, ecotype of this. You can write it down. Local populations adapted to the environmental conditions of any geographical area. The environmental conditions of any geographical area are called as ecotypes. Now, these definitions are questions in themselves, right? Are called as ecotypes. The organisms of different ecotypes, individuals, not organism, the individuals of different ecotypes can have genetic variations, phenotypic variability, or physiological demarcations, due to slight genetic variation, Right? Now, whenever we speak about a population on a whole, right, on the earth itself, the distribution of, we say, be it be humans, be it be animals, be it be anything, right? You speak about one single thing, tiger. Abhi tiger kahan milta hai? Tropical forest area. India, Nepal, Bhutan. India hai na, Assam to. India, Nepal, Bhutan, some of it in China. Wo India wala udhar chala gaya. Then over here in, some of it in Myanmar, Bangladesh, Myanmar, up to that Java, Sumatra, thoda bahut tiger wahan pe bhi milta hai. So this is a distribution. Now, earlier tiger was also found in Africa. African tigers, जैसे अभी African cheetah है ना, हम लेके आए Kuno National Park में इंडिया में, right? So now sometimes some type of the individuals they originate at one place and they divert into different areas, right? That is one distribution of the population. Sometimes similar type of individuals live in two different geographical area and they converge into one type of population, right? So two different types of populations are also known: sympatric and allopatric. Sympatric originated from one point, living in two different areas. Allopatric, living in two different areas, converged into one area, or originated in two different areas, converged into one area, right? जैसे अभी हम चीता की बात करेंगे. We'll speak about the cheetah which is there in Kuno National Park. The good news is the first breed of the cheetah in India is now been known. 3 cheetahs have been born in India out of the cheetahs that we have brought from Africa, right? The African breed. तो वो क्या था? अफ्रीका में था, लेके आ गए इंडिया में. अभी धीरे-धीरे क्या होगा? इंडिया में इसका पॉपुलेशन बढ़ जाएगा. It would expand. When the number of individuals of those cheetah would expand in India, these two different populations, they would become diverged. Originated here, diverged to this, sympatric. Right? Sympatric. Now, the similar type of tiger in here and over there in Java and Sumatra, if they converge over here in, say, Myanmar, यहाँ का tiger भी घूम के चला गया, वहाँ का tiger भी घूम के आ गया. Say in Myanmar, that becomes allopatric. Right? ठीक है? ये समझ में आया? You can write it down. When population originates, allopatric, sympatric and allopatric. We'll write when sympatric when population originates and is diverted, when population originates and is diverted to different geographical areas, they are called as sympatric populations of individuals. They are called as sympatric populations of individuals. If you want to write down example, African and Indian cheetah. After some time, it would become an Indian cheetah because it would become an ecotype of India, right? So, African and Indian cheetah. Another one is allopatric. When populations of an individual in different geographical area, when population of an individual in different geographical area converge into any geographical area, they are allopatric population. Sympatric and allopatric populations. Right? Individuals in any population, they can interbreed also. Individuals of any population, they can interbreed, right? Because the population of any individual is also the characteristic assemblage of an species. Right? Population in any particular area is actually the characteristic assemblage of something called as species. Species in biology, or we can say anywhere in ecology also, species is a characteristic group of individuals which is inbreeding. Characteristic group of individuals which is inbreeding, not outward breeding, right? That becomes a species. In species, the individuals would show a resemblance as far as their genetic characters are considered. Right? They would show the resemblance as far as their genetic characters are considered. Like humans over here, or humans in Russia, or humans in, say, Australia, or humans in, say, Austria, they may look different because of the variation. But they are all Homo sapiens sapiens. They are all Homo sapiens sapiens. So whenever we say different populations, fine, they can be ecotypes, but the complete group becomes the species on a whole, right? The complete assemblage of an individual is called as the species on a whole. Species is the characteristic phenomena, right? It is an inbreeding phenomena. Humans would breed with humans only. They would not outbreed. That is not ecologically correct also. That is not physiologically correct also. That is not phenotypically correct also. That it cannot produce any offspring outward, right? Even if it produces the offspring outward, it becomes a sterile individual, right? Sterile individual. जैसे अभी एक term सुना होगा, एक movie आई थी, बड़ी flop सी movie थी, सुना ना ये term? What is this? This is when lion breeds with tiger. Right? There is one more. When tiger breeds with the lioness. This can happen. But whatever is the outcome of it, they are always sterile. There is no liger producing another liger from, say, tiger or lion. It cannot. There is no tigon producing another tigon from, say, lion or tiger. It cannot happen. Right? So species become characteristically inbreeding phenomena of the individuals. It is always the basic characteristic of species. Right? Individuals of the species always inmate. Right? You can write it down. Species is the genetic assemblage. Species is the genetic assemblage of similar individuals. Genetic assemblage of similar individuals individuals in any species are genetically similar. Individuals of any species are genetically similar with physiological variations Next, individuals of a species always intrabreed. Individuals of a species always intrabreed. Breeding between individuals of two different species, breeding between individuals of two different species produces sterile individuals. Produces sterile individuals. Example you can write down, liger and tigon. Right? Next, individuals of a species compete. Individuals of a species compete for nutrition, space. Individuals of a species compete for nutrition, space. This competition can also lead to extinction of one of the two individuals. Can also lead to extinction of one of the two individuals of the same species. One of the two individuals of the same species. This is Allen's law. Allen's law of competitive exclusion. Allen's law of competitive exclusion दोनों चीजों को बोलता है, दो species के बीच में भी बोलता है और एक species के बीच में भी बोलता है, right? Like for example, you simply take about tigers or you take about dogs also, right? Dogs और tigers that mark their territory always. देखा ना, dogs को देखा ना, रात में जाते हैं सारे कार को मार्क करके आते हैं, right? अपना एरिया मार्क कर देते हैं. कोई दूसरा डॉग अगर आ जाता है तो फिर वो उससे लड़ते हैं, उसको भगाने की कोशिश करते हैं. This is the basic phenomena of competitive exclusion. They always attain a right over nutrition or reproduction or the resources which are present in any particular geographical area. They mark that geographical area, and if the other individual enters into that area, that is always one of them is excluded. अगर एक दूसरा individual powerful है तो इसको मार के भगा देगा, अगर ये powerful है तो इसको मार के भगा देगा. Whatever may be the case, this is called as the Allen's law of competitive exclusion. That one of the individual in the case of competition would be excluded, right? The other one would have the rights over all the resources which are present in that particular area, right? So this also happens between the individuals of the same species. But whatever may be the case, one thing that we must always remember, species or the individuals of the species never interbreed, they always intrabreed. They will inbreed, they will not outbreed. This is the basic characteristic that we must understand, right? So what we have seen? We have seen individual starts the ecology, becomes the population in any particular area, has the species of that particular thing, right? When population of many species, they start to inhabit in any particular area and they create an interaction. Many species, now species of plants, animals, humans, they are all living together. What it would be called? It would be called as a biotic community. It would be called as a biotic community. Right? You can write down individuals or populations of many individuals. Population of many individuals of different species. Populations of many individuals of different species living in a geographical area. Living in a geographical area and interacting with each other with an influence on surrounding, is called a biotic community or biological community. a biotic community or biological community. Each biotic community has specific composition and structure, which is delimited by the environmental conditions prevailing, in that area. The environmental conditions prevailing in that area, right? Like for example, the community of organisms in pond would be different than the community of organisms in an agricultural field, would be different than the community of organisms in a forest, right? Forest may you will find the type of organisms that you will not find in a pond, because it is all limited by a geographical condition or geographical area, right? You can also write down individuals in a biotic community attain sizable structures according to the type of resources present, right? Every type of the species or every type of the population in a biotic community will have its own size limited by the type of resources which are present. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि किसी का size बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ा होगा, किसी और का size होगा ही नहीं. This would not be the case, right? अगर humans हैं तो उनका एक particular size है because of the resources which are present in that particular area. कितना आपको खाना मिल सकता है, कितना रहने के लिए जगह है, कितना आपको पानी मिल सकता है. According to that, the number of individuals would appear, right? If that would not happen, then the population explosion may take place. Whenever there is a population explosion, it would always be limited by the resources which are present. अब खाने को नहीं मिलेगा तो क्या होगा? Either people will emigrate from that particular area, or they would die, or they would extinct, right? If the geographical conditions or the surrounding conditions or the climatic conditions are not favorable for a particular population to flourish, then it would also be extinct. It would also emigrate. So the size of the different species in a biotic community is always limited by the type of resources which are present. This we must understand, right? Whatever is the amount of resource, according to that, the size of the individuals would be seen, right? Of different populations. So they live in harmony with each other. They live in harmony. Either they have an influence, positive or negative, whatever may be the case, but they live in harmony. They adjust with themselves. It is not so that one would take 90% of the resources, others will not have the resources to occupy. This will not happen. Another thing we can write down in biological community, the individuals of different species attain specific functions in a biotic community. Right? So why do we say that individuals of different types of the populations or different types of the species, they live in harmony? Because they have different sets of functions. One has one role, another one has the other role. The influences may be there between the organisms because of the role that is being created. अब इसको exemplify करके बताऊं. Plants का क्या role है? To produce food, right? They are producers, right? Vegetarians का क्या role है? To eat the plants. तो क्या होगा? Vegetarians जब plants को खाएंगे तो plants की number of population or the number of individuals in that population may not increase beyond a particular limit. Eating up of the plants create a limiting factor, right? अगर आप vegetarians completely खत्म कर दो यहाँ से, पूरे अर्थ से vegetarian diet को खत्म ही कर दो, सिर्फ नॉन वेजिटेरियन डाइट हो तो क्या होगा? Extinction of the various types of the animal species, number one, right? And a population shoot of the plants. Both the things would happen. So be it be a feeding habit, be it be an eating habit, whatever may be the case, it also creates a limiting factor on that. That also becomes a resource limiting thing, right? That beyond a particular point, plants may not grow because we are eating them. We are killing them and we are eating. New plants would come in, we'll eat, right? So in the same way, the vegetarians would be eaten by the non-vegetarians. So their number also remains in a slight control also, right? Their number also remains in a slight control. This becomes a limiting factor for them also. आज अगर हम सारा का सारा non-vegetarian diet खत्म कर दें, सब लोग vegan हो जाएं, क्या होगा? What would be the influence? Population of chickens, population of say goat, it would increase abruptly. Population of insects would decrease abruptly. क्यों? Insects किसको, birds किसको खाएंगे? Insects को. Then what would happen? The population of plants would decrease abruptly. Right? So this itself is in harmony. This itself is in harmony, or the complete biotic community remains in harmony because of the different set of functions which are being defined or assigned to different species. That is what we have written, that every individual of a biotic community has a set function. It has a set role to perform. And unless that role is being performed, the harmony between the individuals or harmony between the species or the populations of species in a biotic community would always be maintained. Right? Size may increase or decrease. Size may increase or decrease of a biotic community according to the resources which are present. But their role itself, the role of the biotics in themselves, the influence of the biotic on the abiotic in that particular geographical area would always limit the things themselves, would adjust the things themselves, right? So that is how biotic community is also being created, right? So structure of a biotic community, role of a biotic community is also to be understood. Now, whenever we say, now this is what we have spoken about, the biotic factors, how they are being characterized. The individual is there, species there, population is there, biotic community is being created out of it. Now, whenever we say the physical spaces, whenever we say the physical spaces in any particular, say, geographical area, how these physical spaces are being defined. What is the physical space? How physically you can define? Everything. Yes, biotic and abiotic conditions also, how it is performing, in what area it is wandering around, what is the availability of the food, what is the availability of water. That's how the individual would survive in the community, right? Or individual would survive in a geographical area. So in a particular geographical area, be it be any large, be it be any small, right? In a particular geographical area, there would be a point, there would be a place for an individual to survive, correct? There would be a place for an individual to survive. That place would provide the maximum suitability of inhabiting in that particular area, right? Maximum suitability of habitation in that particular area, that you can live in this particular area. Why do you live in Delhi? For preparation. In Delhi also you live in Karol Bagh. Why do you live in Karol Bagh? Or say surrounding area? Location for coaching centers, right? Then too you choose one of the good PGs we say, right? Why do you choose that good PG? There are many PGs. You can adapt to that, to the water, to the food, to the air, to the location, to the walkability. What are these? These are suitabilities of habitation. These are suitabilities of habitation. तो अब ये आपका पूरा एरिया, करोल बाग का एरिया, आपके लिए क्या होगा? It is your habitat, right? It is your habitat. So habitat is a place of suitability of any individual. Suitability of any individual or its group. There could be 4 or 5 of them, or a small population of it, right? Individual or its small population inhabiting in any particular area owing to the suitability of the condition. Owing to the suitability of the condition, that area is called as habitat, right? Inside the habitat, you first understand these things, then you will write down. We will write down these things. First you understand. Inside the habitat also, there is one particular smallest area which is the exact place of the residence of that particular individual. Right? Not exactly niche. Niche is quite different. It's not defined as physical space. Right? This is the basic misconception people have with habitats and niche. Niche we'll discuss separately. In that habitat also, this Karol Bagh is your habitat. Right? Karol Bagh is your habitat. Right? You wander around. Out of 24 hours you are here only per day in Karol Bagh. Right? Then too, in 24 hours, 8 hours you are over here in Old Rajendra Nagar, wandering around, purchasing books, eating coffee, eating food. Right? Merry-go around with friends, then go to coachings, right? Study, discuss, all of these. Rest 16 hours, you are there in your room. Because more suitability is there in the room. रात को 12 बजे जाएंगे अगर, तो क्या यहाँ घूमोगे? ओल्ड राजेंद्र नगर में? बहुत वो अलग वाले प्राणी होते हैं, जो अलग इन्फ्लुएंस में होते हैं, जो 12 बजे घूमते हैं, right? नहीं तो नॉर्मली नहीं घूमते, right? क्या होगा? आप अपने पीजी में जाके सो जाओगे, या पढ़ोगे, या आपकी सूटेबिलिटी वहां ज्यादा होगी. क्लाइमेटिक कंडीशंस आपके लिए फेवरेबल वहां ज्यादा है, इंस्टेड ऑफ यहाँ वॉन्डर करते रहो रात में 12 बजे. ठंड लगेगी भाई, राइट? वहां पे तो ब्लैंकेट है, राइट? सो द सूटेबिलिटी इज मोर ओवर देयर. देन दैट एरिया इनसाइड द हैबिटेट इज कॉल्ड एज माइक्रो हैबिटेट. That area inside the habitat is called as microhabitat. In the habitat also, the area of maximum suitability, the area of maximum suitability of the individual is called as microhabitat. And all the conditions prevailing in this microhabitat, are called as microclimate are called as microclimate. Right now, for example, if we increase the canvas, we speak about Delhi itself. Right, Delhi is a larger geographical area, but it is the home for a type of ecotype. It is the home for an ecotype. Delhiites isko bolte. Born and brought up in Delhi, or say migrated to Delhi, living in Delhi for last 20-25 years, anything. Right, so they are suited to the very good smog that is there in Delhi, the abrupt rainfall that is there, the scorching heat that is there over here, right? The everlasting January ka thand that is there. All of these are the conditions. Now we are adapted, right? अब अगर January में इतना ठंड हमको किसी और जगह पे नहीं मिलता तो हमारी तबीयत खराब हो जाती है, right? अभी we are adapted to this climatic condition, right? So when an individual, or set of a population gets adapted to a particular area, that becomes habitat, and the conditions prevailing in that particular area become the microclimate. So climate of India can be different, but the microclimate of Delhi is different. The microclimate is influenced by several other factors outside Delhi. अब Delhi में smog क्यों होता है? तो उसके कई reasons हैं. Delhi में vehicular pollution ज़्यादा है, thermoelectric pollution ज़्यादा है, fine. लेकिन influence बाहर के microclimate या climate से भी होता है. पंजाब से, हरियाणा से आ जाता है, right? राजस्थान से आ जाता है. क्या आ जाता है? Fog नहीं, smog, pollution, right? Agricultural waste burning. Right, crop stubble burning, and the smoke coming out of the crop stubble burning, it all gets accumulated over here. So the microclimate can be influenced by, कहने का मतलब क्या है? The microclimate of any particular habitat can be influenced by the climatic conditions prevailing outside that habitat, or the climatic conditions prevailing outside that habitat. Also, the microclimate of that particular area is influenced by the conditions prevailing inside the habitat also. Microclimate can be influenced by both the things, outside and what is going on inside. Like for example, simplest of the example बताता हूँ, चलो, ठीक है? इसको link करता हूँ पहले. आप मान लेते हैं, say for example, this is Delhi, right? Now usually say it is summer days, right? Delhi का temperature reaching at the center 46 degrees centigrade. ठीक है? लेकिन जब आप travel करते हो, जैसे जैसे दिल्ली से बाहर जाते हो, you feel it, the temperature over here might be 46 degrees centigrade, but somewhere at the outskirts of the Delhi, it becomes 42. Much further, it becomes 39. Right? Why is it so that the temperature in the center of Delhi is 46? It is a concrete island. It is an urban heat island. It is an urban heat island because there is less amount of the vegetation, more amount of greenhouse gases which are prevailing over here. Right? More amounts of the greenhouse gases which are prevailing over here. Carbon dioxide precisely is high over here. When carbon dioxide is high, it absorbs much amount of the heat which is to be liberated out into the atmosphere. That heat is being liberated over here in the lower atmosphere itself, and so the temperature over here keeps on increasing. Temperature over here keeps on increasing. Right? Now, because of this, what happens? The overall extent of heat in the atmosphere over Delhi also increases. At the center of Delhi, the heat is felt up to 2 kilometers above Delhi. Ideally, it should have been no heat after 1 kilometer. Atmosphere में जब हम जैसे जैसे ऊपर जाते हैं lower atmosphere में per kilometer the temperature decreases by 6.5 degrees centigrade. That is called as the normal lapse rate of the atmosphere. But that does not happen with Delhi. वो 6.5 डिग्री घटने से इनफैक्ट उसके ऑपोजिट होता है, वहां पे 2 डिग्री बढ़ जाता है. That is called as the, और 1.1 से 1.5 डिग्री तक टेम्परेचर बढ़ जाता है पर किलोमीटर. Up to 2 to 2.5 kilometers, right? That is called as the heat plume. So there's a big heat plume which is burning over here in Delhi. There's a big heat plume which is burning over here. It's just like a gas chamber. A big heat plume burning over here in Delhi. Now every air that would be over here in Delhi, whatever air is there in the lower atmosphere of Delhi, it would always be heated, right? And whenever gas heats, it always moves up. It rises. Whenever gas heats up, it goes up into the atmosphere. So the gas rises up, right? Now over here, there's much amount of the pressure of the gas, right? So comparative to this high pressure, the pressure over here outside Delhi is far lesser, right? So this gas moves over here, or the air moves over here. Now what happens when the gas over here is constantly getting heated up and is moving up? It would also create a low pressure over here, low pressure of the gas. So now from low pressure to high pressure to low pressure, to now over here the pressure is high to low pressure. What would happen? The influence of the climatic conditions prevailing in an habitat starts to appear. what it would bring in. Outside Delhi, there's much amount of the dust pollutants, right? These are pollutants are fluxed into Delhi because of this condition also. So if we say that if we want to remove air pollution in Delhi, we cannot do it just by putting vegetation or by sprinkling water over here on roads through water cannons or placing a kind of smoke tower over here in Delhi itself. We have to influence everything prevailing to this. We have to first and foremost cut down this. लॉजिक आता है ना यार, इतना पोल्यूशन है, थर्मो इलेक्ट्रिक पावर प्लांट बंद कर दे, और एन इवन लगाने से क्या हो जाएगा? लॉजिक आता है ना? बहुत सारे लोग ऐसे होंगे जो केजरीवाल को पसंद नहीं करते, बोलते हैं ना और एन इवन लगा दो क्या हो जाएगा? और एन इवन लगाओगे तो ये कट डाउन हो जाएगा, ये कट डाउन हो जाएगा तो क्या होगा? ये इन्फ्लुएंस स्लो डाउन हो जाएगी, ये स्लो डाउन हो जाएगा तो क्या होगा? दैट इनफ्लक्स, दैट डस्ट डोम व्हिच इज बीइंग क्रिएटेड ओवर हियर इन दिल्ली, दैट वुड आल्सो बी lapsed. So the air would comparatively would be cleaner, the air quality index would be better, right? Small things. So whenever we say, ab dekho, why do you need to understand these phenomena? आप देखो, आप एक IAS ऑफिसर हो, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट एंड पोल्यूशन में बैठे हो, आपने हैबिटेट का कॉन्सेप्ट पढ़ा है, माइक्रो क्लाइमेट का कॉन्सेप्ट पढ़ा है. व्हाट डज द माइक्रो क्लाइमेट कॉन्सेप्ट सेज? The microclimate concept says that the climatic conditions in any particular habitat is influenced by the factors prevailing inside as well as factors prevailing outside. When you cannot control the factors outside, at least you should control the inside. So what should be your first policy? What should be your first policy when you are there in environment and forest? Your first policy is cut down the things over here inside, which are actually bringing in the factors from outside, right? So these all things become important to understand also. So in a habitat, whenever we say an individual prevails in any particular area, that space is called as habitat, right? Inside the habitat, the suitability point is micro habitat, and in the micro habitat, the conditions prevailing, or in the habitat itself, the climatic conditions prevailing are called as microclimatic conditions. These conditions are being influenced by factors inside the habitat and outside the habitat also, right? You can write it down. Habitat. Of any habitat of any individual is the area of maximum suitability, is the area of maximum suitability, is the area of maximum suitability of habitability, suitability of habitability of any individual, of any individual or its group or its population, or its group or its population, right? The conditions prevailing in any habitat, next point, the conditions prevailing in any habitat, are non-limiting for any individual, are non-limiting for any individual. Next, any species or its population, any species or its population attain any habitat, any species or its population attain any habitat due to its tolerance, attain any habitat due to its tolerance towards, due to its tolerance towards the conditions prevailing in that geographical area. Conditions prevailing in that geographical area. Next, habitat is the optimal zone. Habitat is the optimal zone. Habitat is the optimal zone for any individual the boundaries of habitat, the boundaries of habitat where conditions may become intolerable, where conditions may become intolerable are called as zone of stress. Are called as zone of stress. Conditions beyond zone of stress are limiting. Conditions beyond zone of stress are limiting for any individual. Right? Next, microhabitat. Microhabitat is the zone of maximum suitability. Is the zone of maximum suitability of survivability or habitability. Zone of maximum suitability of survivability of any individual, right? It is also the zone of maximum comfort, and minimum stress of any individual, right? So next point likhiye, habitat and microhabitat can be shared. Habitat and microhabitat can be shared by individuals of one or more species. Can be shared by individuals of one or more species, interdependent, one or more species interdependent for functions or survivability. Interdependent for functions और सर्वाइवेबिलिटी. तो आपके घर में एक जो तुलसी का पौधा लगा हुआ है वो क्या है? दैट इज शेयरिंग ऑफ हैबिटेट. आपके घर में एक छोटा सा डॉग रहता है, व्हाट इज दैट? शेयरिंग ऑफ हैबिटेट. आपके घर में छोटी सी एक एंट रहती है, दैट इज व्हाट? शेयरिंग ऑफ हैबिटेट. कॉकरोच रहता है, शेयरिंग ऑफ हैबिटेट. छिपकली रहती है, शेयरिंग ऑफ हैबिटेट. सो हैबिटेट कैन बी शेयर्ड. इवन माइक्रो हैबिटेट कैन ऑल्सो बी शेयर्ड. ऑल्दो हमारे कमरे में अगर छिपकली आ जाती तो हम कोशिश करते हैं कि उसको भगा दें. जब वो नहीं जाती तो वो ब्लैंकेट ओढ़ के सो जाते हैं कि ठीक है वो भी चली जाएगी, हम आंख बंद कर लेते हैं. Right? So there is no fierce competition whenever there is sharing of microhabitat or habitat between two species. There is no fierce competition unless it becomes the point of survivability. अब कोई टाइगर ही आपके कमरे में आके रहने लगे तो फिर तो भगाओगे इसको या मारोगे, या एक सांप आ जाए. Unless it becomes the question of survivability, the habitat is shared between two different species. Right? Next, microclimate is the set of physical conditions prevailing in any habitat or microhabitat. Set of physical conditions prevailing in any habitat or microhabitat microclimate is influenced by internal as well as external factors. Microclimate is influenced by internal as well as external factors. Individuals of any habitat remain adapted. Individuals of any habitat remain adapted to the microclimatic conditions. Prevailing. Right? So if you will not adapt to the microclimatic conditions prevailing in any particular habitat, either you will emigrate, you will go out of that particular area, or you would become extinct. Right? You would die. Right? Anything can happen. Apart from this, when habitats of many individuals, whenever they are being clubbed together, say a large biotic community ban gaya, ek bahut bada population rehne laga, whenever that happens, then we quantify it as a landscape. we quantify it as a landscape. Just say Delhi is a landscape. There are many individuals living, many different populations living in a particular geographical area with a climatic condition that becomes a landscape. Now together, a landscape and its biotic community. Together, a landscape and its biotic community. That means the abiotic factors, the climate of that particular area, sunlight, water, air, temperature, soil. These are all abiotic factors together. The climate of that particular area together, or the microclimate of that particular area together, plus the living beings in that particular area together. When they are being taken all together, this is called as an ecosystem. What is this? An ecosystem. Right? This becomes an ecosystem. The landscape of any particular area. Right? What are habitats? Inside the landscape, there would be many habitats of different species. All these habitats clubbed together becomes a landscape. Now, landscape can be anything. Landscape can be a pond. It can be a forest. It can be an agricultural field. In a larger canvas, it can be a city. In a larger canvas, it can be a continent. Right? Depending upon how less variability is found in the climatic and abiotic factors. Right? A landscape is always limited by the geographical and the physical conditions. Landscape is always limited by the geographical and the physical conditions. So what do we call as a landscape? Landscape is a geographical area, we can say, of the almost similar physical conditions. Almost similar, not exactly similar, but almost similar physical conditions. मतलब temperature 45 से 35 है, ठीक है? तो एक variability range है, ये temperature high ही होगा, right? That becomes a kind of landscape. That becomes a kind of landscape. Or physical condition, demarcation of the water boundary. एक lake है, pond है, water है, तो एक physical boundary है. There's a physical condition of water. Right? There would be an influence of water. There would be many things pertaining to that. That becomes a landscape altogether. So landscape is a geographical area demarcated by set of conditions. You can write down landscape. Landscape is a physical area or any geographical area is a physical area or geographical area demarcated by physical area or geographical area demarcated by geographical, climatic or physical barriers. Or physical barriers, right? Barriers would mean over here that beyond that, there would be a set of different conditions. There would be a set of different sets of temperature. There would be a set of different sets of things prevailing over there. Inside that, these set of conditions are almost similar, right? You can also write down the physical conditions. The physical conditions, climate, the physical conditions, climate, availability of the resources, is uniform and suitable, for a biotic community to exist. Next, you write down ecosystem. It is an aggregation of biotic community and their physical environment. Biotic community and their physical environment. It is a cumulative form. It is a cumulative form of any biotic community. It is a cumulative form of any biotic community. Surviving, interacting, exchanging. Surviving, interacting, exchanging in any landscape. In any landscape. Next, ecosystem is self-contained. Ecosystem is self-contained as resources and climate, as resources and climate required for resources and climate required for habitability of any biotic community, resources and climate required for habitability of any biotic community are contained in an ecosystem. Are contained in an ecosystem. Next, ecosystem is dynamic. Ecosystem is dynamic. Ecosystem is dynamic as it contains flow of nutrients, as it contains flow of nutrients and cycle of energy, flow of nutrients and cycle of energy across flow of nutrients and cycle of energy across various components, across various biotic and abiotic components, across various biotic and abiotic components. Right, next. Ecosystem can be small or large. Ecosystem can be small or large depending upon the geographical boundaries of landscape, the geographical boundaries of landscape.
Introducing the Prelims Target course and Prelims Test Series at ProdEgyIAS. Designed for UPSC Prelims 2026, this comprehensive program offers in-depth classes on history, geography, science and tech, environment, polity and governance, and economy. Stay updated with current affairs and sharpen your skills with our Prelims Test Series consisting of 50 full-length tests covering all subjects along with CSAT. Join ProdEgyIAS and stay ahead.